Hey, folks. Hey, welcome to the Pop Culture SquadCast Live. I'm Bob Harrison. I'm riding solo for this tonight. Mike's not going to be here tonight. He's got some technical difficulties, and he's working through that. So it's just going to be me. We have a guest. David Petersen is going to be joining us soon. We're going to talk to him about his almost 20 years of making mouse guard, the new mouse guard that's going on. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some other things. In the meantime, I'm going to try and kill some time for you and talk about some cool things. Let me know if you have questions because we got some open space here. But let's start with where we were going to start with Mike. Again, thanks everybody for being here. Thanks for always being here. If you haven't yet, and you're new to the show, make sure you like, follow, subscribe wherever you're watching so you get to find out when we go live. We do this show every Tuesday. We have a great guest lineup set up for the next several Tuesdays, and we're still always working on making that list better for you. So Dino, you're with me here. Dean's watching. How was IthCon 48? That was the first thing that we were going to talk about. It was fantastic. It's such a fun show. Every year we go there, Mike and I, and some of our friends. Dean was there. We had a lot of fun. I enjoy helping the students who run the show figure out what type of programming they need to use, what works well, who you need to have in certain places, and it's just such a real fun experience because it's different than anything else. Sherry was there as well. My wife was there. She was helping the Simonsons at their table. Trying to keep their line in good moving order, which is always a challenge no matter where they are. But the fun part about Ithacon is that it's run by students. It's who are taking a class in marketing. A lot of them are marketing majors. A lot of them are business majors. Some of them are not. So, we ran into one guy who is a theater major with a marketing minor, and so he was doing a lot of work in terms of setting things up, checking people in, helping with setup. It's really just a great experience for the students, but also it becomes a great experience for the people who are attending. It becomes a great experience for the people who are guests there. One of the things that we were talking about, amongst the guests and myself, was how wonderful it is to have an experience where there are things that go wrong at every single con. No matter what con you're at, it's never perfect, and which is, no one expects perfection. There will always be something that needs to happen, whether it's on day one and you realize that, the Simonsons don't have enough space, or there's somebody who didn't show up and now you have a big empty hole in your line, and maybe you want to move somebody else there who who got stuck somewhere else. It doesn't matter what it is. The lanyards took too long to get there. There's a million things that go wrong at every single con. And one of the things that's beneficial to having students run it is a lot of us have experience with what goes well at cons, and so giving them our lessons learned, our life lessons about how a convention can go well, is something that you want to impart to people who are just learning. And college students can be full of themselves. They can be. I probably knew more than I thought anybody else. And so it's very common. You would expect that they're like, thanks, old man. I know what I'm doing. You don't have to tell me what to do. But you never have that with these students, with the people that are part of Ed Cato's class. They're eager to learn. They're eager to help. They want everyone to have a great time, and they want to learn how to make things better. I guess, I think that's a credit to their teacher, or professor, or Ed is a great friend, and I know he works his butt off, and he gets to this point in every year, and we get to Saturday night, and by Saturday night you can see just a little bit of a relief from Ed. It's like, okay, we've gotten through half of it, can't be any worse from here on out. Let's get through it. So I know he's got to be still trying to catch up after getting through all of that. But Ithacon was fun. I ran some panels, and let's not diminish the fact that there's an interesting part of Ithacon. At Ithacon, on the Saturday night, there's a reception that's held for all of the staff, students, workers, as well as the guests and vendors who are there. And at that event, after the show is over on Saturday evening, they present a series of awards called the Turner Awards. They're named after Bill Turner, who is the founder of Ithacon. And this year, my co-host, who is not here tonight, unfortunately, due to the tubes and wires, and he's pretty angry at Apple right now and some Macintosh Apple things. But we'll get it figured out for next week for sure. In the meantime, at this year's Turner Awards, Mike was honored with the Trailblazer Award, and I couldn't have been prouder. I got the opportunity to introduce him. I asked for that because I just feel like it was something I wanted to do, and they were kind enough to let me be part of it, and I appreciate that. Mike's, as I said before, and I know a lot of you who watch the show know, Mike will sprinkle in his nuggets of insanity and serendipity and all those things. But really, one of the things I said when I introduced him was that you can't tell the story of comics and tell it accurately, especially in the 80s, without the influences of Mike Gold. He changed things. The choices he made, the role he played, affected how the comics industry played out, how comics changed. I've said many times how important the Longbow Hunters is to me, and how important it is to how comics evolved. And that book doesn't happen without Mike Gold convincing Mike Grell to do it. So that was really a fun experience. Again, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for being here. Mike's not going to be here tonight. Our guest is in the green room, so I'm going to get to him very, very shortly. But before we get to David, I just want to touch on, for those of you who weirdly listen to us for your comics related news, we have more Diamond issues. It is chaos. So if you followed us a couple weeks back, we were talking about there was an auction, and this new company Alliance was the winner of the auction, and it just had to go through the court and get approved. And that was supposed to be yesterday. And weirdly, Saturday, now mind you, there were some rumors. There was Image was objecting to the winner. They felt that because that happened, their contract could be renegotiated. There were some concerns there. But over the weekend, Diamond rejected the winning bid, from my understanding, and wanted to move forward with a different bid from a combination of Universal distributors and Ad Populum as a combined bid. Universal is the largest distributor in Canada. Ad Populum is more of a merch distributor. And so we didn't know what was going to happen going into Monday. And apparently then we went into this hearing, and Alliance sued Diamond because they are, feeling that they're going against the auction, all kinds of crazy stuff. If you're looking for more information, we don't spend all of our time, getting into the details. We kind of give you what the the highlights are. I recommend going to Comics Beat. Heidi McDonald has some good reporting there. Also, Bleeding Cool's trying to get their handle on things. So Rich is doing his thing. We don't know where we stand. We spent a lot of time. One of the panels I had this past weekend at Ithacon was kind of getting the comic industry health check, seeing where we are. Joe Rybant was on the panel from Dynamite Entertainment. We had Tyler Chintanner on the panel from A Wave Blue World, and Bill Shanes, who was a longtime employee of Diamond, was there. And we kind of, I think the breaking of the news about bringing Universal in happened while the panel was probably going on, because none of us had any idea about it. And it was, one of the things that as we hope, as we feel, is that, we're going to get through this. Whoever ends up publishing or whoever ends up distributing comics, we're just all hopeful that, there will be a place for the smaller publishers. I think that's all of our biggest concerns. We are hopeful that that will be the case. I think that part of this whole new saga in this or new development in this saga is because those at Diamond are concerned about the smaller publishers. So more to come on this. There was more news over the weekend. I don't know if maybe we'll wait to talk to David about the other news that happened over the weekend, which is related to his publisher, Boom. Or Archaia is the imprint. But thank you guys for letting me spew for the last 13 minutes or so. I want to bring in David Petersen. I've known David for probably over about 10 years now. We've seen each other at cons. We've hung out and talked, and this is our first time actually having me doing an interview with him. So I'm really excited for it, and I'm excited for all of you to get to it. So without me talking anymore, let's bring in David Petersen. Hi, David.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? It's good seeing you.
Good to see you.
Now we are broadcasting on 3 sites. One of them is someplace where you are normally seen. Our Twitch feed is kind of wacky. I don't know how it kind of works with StreamYard, but you're on Twitch fairly regularly still, or no?
No, I was, and then a whole bunch of things kind of collided. I think there was a little bit of streaming burnout that was building up, where the ongoing nature of it.
Sure.
Like you're never building towards something. It's just
I understand the point.
And then I just had like a collision of all these deadlines and then holiday stuff. So right around beginning of middle December, I just went, I can't do this anymore, guys. I gotta dial back. And I didn't have like a definitive, here's when I'm taking off and here's when I'm coming back. But I'll, without trying to offend any of the viewers, because I did enjoy communicating. I did enjoy having like a regular interaction with fans. Other than that, I don't miss it. And
Sure.
I think that's the key, that I really should be focusing on getting work done and doing other stuff to kind of keep personal life going smoothly rather than
work like this.
That's some of it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We're going to talk about this soon. I understand that. We've been regular. I think we've missed one Tuesday so far this year, and that's a lot. but it's fun, and I will continue to do this. But I completely understand your point. I completely respect your decisions, and that's the most important thing for you is to do the work that's gonna get gonna keep you paying your bills and all those things. And Gene,
Yeah.
so offended, of course.
Sorry, Gene. I didn't know that Gene was watching.
Gene does watch.
My stream. I don't know that he's watching my stream. Obviously, he's watching this one. But yeah, well, I think also there was the problem of like, you know, sometimes there's stuff that you can stream artwork wise, and other times there's stuff that you can't because it's, you know, can't be revealed. And so I was streaming Mondays and Wednesdays and finding that I would have to, like, on Sunday night, Monday morning, start thinking about what am I going to do on stream that's okay to do on stream. And sometimes that meant completely switching gears from what I really should be working on. And then once Monday was done, having to shift gears back after my Monday stream was done, switched back to working on regular work. And it was that back forth where it was like part of Monday and part of Wednesday had to be sometimes even make up stuff to draw just to stream, but then get back into work mode. And yeah, it just got to be too much.
It is I appreciate it. You know, we do this regularly. We do this every Tuesday, but sometimes Thursdays. And right now I don't see us doing live Thursdays. We might kick in a recorded Thursday, but it's a difficult thing, like, especially because this isn't our main thing. You know, we do this to supplement and to engage other things, but and I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm going to keep being here for you guys because I love it. I love the engagement. I love talking more about things, and if I'm talking about comics, I'm happy. But I completely get that. Let's move away from that.
All right.
Let's talk about a little bit more about David. So I know this is probably an easy question, and everybody's already asked you, but why mice?
It's unfortunately there's no quick way to answer it.
Well, I will tell you that normally my question is why comics.
Sure.
I'm adjusting for you.
Okay.
So, why mice?
It's not an easy one to answer because it has to go into a big long backstory of trying to do a fantasy animal comic in high school that was probably more like Disney's Robin Hood, had no mice in it, and really just connects to my love of talking animal stories, things like Disney's Robin Hood, Aesop's Fables, Wind of the Willows. And then in college, wanting to kind of dust that idea off again and make it more, more serious, I guess, less feeling like an animated feature, and treat the animals as actual animals rather than kind of humanoid creatures with animal heads and tails and hands. And then going like, I want to do this like Aesop's Fables, and I want to treat all the species almost like Tolkien would treat different races. I want them to have elaborate histories and cultures and architecture and language and etc. And I set parameters, and the largest would be a bear and the smallest would be a mouse. I didn't want to get down into insects as main characters for that. And it quickly became as daunting as all of that sounds. It was way too much to try to, especially for a college kid who had no experience actually writing or drawing stories other than just wanting to write and draw stories. And eventually, again, there was another period of not doing anything with it because I was in college. And when I dusted the idea off the third time, I realized that the mice were actually the interesting part of the story. The plight of the mice. If I have all the appropriate predator-prey relationships there, how do you keep a society of mice involved in the story? It's not like when the hobbits come out of the Shire, the world of elves and dwarves and men all think, little hobbit, you're too little to change the world, but none of them are also like, lunch. So I was like, how do I keep the mice in the story? And I just realized like they are the story.
Sure.
The rest of it becomes backdrop. So that's why years after, like after the series started coming out, the better answer, but I didn't give it to you because it's not the honest answer. The better answer is because everyone knows what it feels like to be very small in a world that's very big, whether that's physically, emotionally, professionally. There's something in your life that has made you feel small in a very big world, and everyone can relate to that.
So, I get that, and I think that's an honest answer, even though it's not the first answer.
It's not the I don't like leading with that answer.
It's not the evolutionary answer, but it
I don't
might
like
be the true answer.
It is I think it is the true answer. I think it's just if I answer with that first, it makes it sound like that was a calculated decision.
Sure.
Rather than the hidden truth at the center that you discover by actually, excavating it.
I love that. I love that you've come to that answer. So you kind of, and we'll talk a little bit more, but I want to talk about how you kind of mentioned it and skimmed over writing and art and drawing, and how do you today feel about where you are in terms of the percentage of time you spend writing versus drawing? Like, I mean, do you consider yourself an artist who writes, a writer who draws? How do you think of that? Or is it equal?
No, I'm an artist who draws, or I'm an artist who draws. I'm an artist who writes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the earliest Mouse Guard stories, I didn't really write much other than an outline. Kind of, what we think of as the Marvel method. I was writing an outline of what needs to happen, and then essentially writing it visually by doing thumbnails or even going straight to pages.
And then, so would you go back completely and then dialogue it in?
Yep. And the early, especially the fall book, the first
Marvel
book in
method
the
with
series,
yourself.
Yeah, the first book in the series is, I think, very Spartan when it comes to dialogue because I was only adding it in where it was absolutely necessary. And then with the second book, I think I want more character interaction. I think I want some more emotional beats. And I started doing a little bit more writing beforehand. Now I write everything beforehand, but I'm still not breaking things down per page and saying like, panel 1, panel 2, or anything like that. I'm still writing story beats and then all the dialogue associated with those story beats. And then it really comes to start thumbnailing for, like, it has to be a visual process of breaking down what parts of that fit on how many pages.
So it's almost 20 years, right? The first issue came out in 2006. That's 19 years.
First issue actually came out in 2005 as a self-published black.
There you go. See,
issue.
I knew it was 20 years. I knew it had to be there.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to be at Motor City Comic-Con this May, next month, where I launched the first self-published issue.
That's awesome.
No publisher, no nothing. I mean, I seriously used a print-on-demand service, printed about 200 copies, and took it to that show to see, like, I like this story. I like this thing that I drew. Would anybody else like it?
Yeah. So
20 years ago,
that was this, right?
Just about a month. Yep.
And how did that happen? I mean, what happened there? What happened at that Motor City Con?
It went well. So my friend Jeremy Bastian, who does Curse Pirate Girl, he had encouraged me to go to Motor City Comic-Con the year prior. He was like, you should set up at Motor City Comic-Con. And I was like, but I can't set up at a comic convention. I don't have a comic. And he's like, oh, I've been setting up at that show for years and I don't have a comic. I either do sketchbooks or commissions or prints or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. So I had gone to the one prior and shown just samples of my work at my table to try to get commissions. And people, when they saw the concept art for Mouse Guard, my sketches and stuff, they're like, when does this book come out? And I kept going like, oh, there's no book. This is just ideas that I have. And that was the only one that people asked, when does this book come out? Like all the other sketches and commission sample kind of pieces, nobody asked, but the mice people were interested in. So after a couple like, no, there's no book, I got smart and said, oh, I'll have the book here for the next Motor City Comic Con. And Jeremy and I had both done, my art history professor from college had put together a kind of a local anthology, and Jeremy contributed to that, and I contributed to that. And so through that, I think we both kind of learned some things about production that seemed daunting. And I knew the company that he used to print it, that was a print on demand thing. And I just went, okay, I think all the puzzle pieces are here. I've set up at a convention, so I have a method of selling it. I know how to, draw and write to some degree. And now I know the production stuff and how to get it printed. So I think all the puzzle pieces are there. Let's see. And then Jeremy self-published a thing. It was called Phantom Core. It was before Curse Pirate Girl. It's called Phantom Core. I did Mouse Guard, and then we agreed that we could take the story each story that we had done for the art history professor and pad out that a little bit more and do an anthology book between the two of us. So at that first Motor City where we're both debuting books, we could actually have 3 books between us.
Did you get that far?
Yeah, we did it. We got all of that done. And it was a good con. I sold out of all the Mouse Guard issues that I brought. And I was also selling pages. I was selling pages for what I knew was a low price because I wanted seed money to be able to not just pay off my convention table and the printing for what I had already just done, but also forward, I wanted to be able to pay for like the next Motor Cities table and the next printing of what would be an issue 2.
And what happened between then? Did you pay for an issue 2 or did?
Oh no. Yeah, no. So that was May of 2005. And then in July of 2005, I went to San Diego Comic-Con just to wander, just to be a spectator. And I was going there because a whole bunch of people from the Hellboy.com forums were going to be there. And then I was an active part of that message board.
Sure.
And I was like, this will be a good meetup. It'll be my first time ever going to San Diego. It'll be fun. And I bumped into a guy who was a comics journalist in Michigan who had seen me at Motor City and had been very supportive. And he was like, I know what you're doing here at San Diego. You're looking for a publisher for Mouse Guard. And I was like, no, but no publisher here at San Diego. You think Dark Horse? You think Marvel wants a square book about mice? And he was like, well, maybe not them, but there are some smaller publishers here that'd be a good fit. And he mentioned Archaea, which I didn't know what that was, but he said it's Mark Smiley's new company. And I knew Mark Smiley. I knew both his work, and then he had given me a portfolio review several years beforehand. And that gave me enough confidence to go, okay, I guess I could talk to Mark Smiley and see if he'd be interested in the book. And he pretty much said he wanted to publish it there and then on the show floor.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So within 2 months I had a kind of national publishing deal, and I never had to self-publish again.
That's fantastic. And so here we are 20 years later, and we now have. Do you know how much you have published, Black Mouse Guard related? Like how many issues?
Quantity?
Quantity?
No. I couldn't do
that. You're not a complete nerd.
No.
Just mostly.
There was a point where I had a running tally
of
how many interior pages I had drawn. And then you look at what you've done and you look at what the next big round number is, and you're like, yeah, that's what I want to get to. And then I found it so discouraging at the rate that I was going, how long it was going to take to get to that round number, that I don't even think I have the piece of paper that kept that tally going.
Gene is definitely engaged tonight, and thank you for watching, Gene.
Yeah, thanks.
He wants to let you know that he did vote for you as most promising newcomer.
He has told me that in private before. I appreciate him publicly acknowledging it. Gene, Jeremy and I weren't actually college classmates, Jeremy went to another school in Pittsburgh. I went to Eastern Michigan University, but he was already back from school and working at the art supply store directly across the street from the college that I went to. And so I met him through buying my art supplies.
That's fantastic.
So we were never classmates. Like he never had the art history professor I had. He just knew him because of the proximity to the college
and the art, working in the art supply store.
Yeah, and working at the art supply store. And it was Eastern, not CCS. And I never went to CCS, but I know several graduates, including you.
Let's talk a little bit about the new book, which is Mouse Guard: Dawn of the Black Axe. Is it 5 issues?
3.
Or is it
3?
There's 3 issues. I was excited for 5 because
I'm sorry.
There's 5 snakes.
There are. How's that going to work?
I don't know. Now I'm confused. So
I promise you, all 3 have been drawn. I'm actually coloring the 3rd issue right now.
I love the color.
It all gets resolved.
I believe you.
It all gets resolved.
One of the things that if you're new to this, David is a fine writer and a wonderful storyteller. And so I'm never disappointed when I pick up something you've worked on. This story, if you're not familiar with Mouse Guard, there is this realm of that is defended by these guard mice, and they all have great personalities and things. But you've explored this world, and you said they didn't just show up at one point. There must have been some before them, and you've gone back here to the beginning of the Black Axe, which is one, kind of the one of the legends within the Mouse Guard realm. Why do that? Why go back and tell this story? Also, before we get any further, I just want to, Gabriel Rodriguez did the art in this, did the line art in this. You colored it, you wrote it, you lettered it. Why go back to this?
So I hope this isn't spoilers for anybody who hasn't read Mouse Guard. What I tend to find is, as much as I came up with an order that I put things out and that I assume is the reading order, people have told me that they read things out of order, and somehow I managed to write a book series where you can pick up any book at any time and not be lost. I don't understand how that works, but I'm also hoping that because of that, I can say this without spoiling anything. There's this mythical legend of a mouse that wields the Black Axe, who also gets that moniker, the Black Axe. The character appeared in fall, appeared in winter. The first book, fall, the second book, winter, and then the third book is all about the lore of the Black Axe. I decided to both demystify and also further the legend of what the Black Axe is and where it comes from in the third book. And what you find in the third book is very much like the Dread Pirate Roberts. This is a title that's been handed down, that at some point a mouse says I'm done being, or they pass away and it's handed to another mouse. And so the legend goes back over 200 years. The timeline in the Mouse Gear Society is 1152 of my first 2 books.
Right.
Black Axe takes place about 40 years before that. This goes back to 915 and the forging of the Black Axe. And so I had hinted about the origins, and also I had made like a stone tablet that you can see in the third book of all the wielders of the Black Axe and who bestowed it upon them. And
this is Bardrick's Tale.
Yeah, and I just thought this is fertile ground, especially for a spinoff. My wife, some fans, my publisher have all been eager for the idea of like, hey, it'd be great to get more Mouse Guard out there without it taxing you so much, where you can keep working on the main series and we can have some supplemental stuff coming out. And I'm always leery to do that, especially when you're going to tell canon stories. So we came up with a framework that we thought worked, which is get in a different guest artist per Black Axe, per past Black Axe.
Mm-hmm.
And I will write those so that they stay in canon. And then Gabriel, who was my first choice. In fact, we waited 2 years to start this project because of Gabe's schedule.
That's fantastic.
I was like, nope,
I'm sorry, but that's also fantastic.
Yeah. No, they said like, hey, why don't we get somebody else to do the first one and then come back for Gabe for a later one? And I was like, nope, I think Gabe's got to be the one that kicks it off. I think fans and even not fans are going to be leery of hearing that there's an artist change. And unless it is just knocked out of the park,
which it is.
Yeah. And I think Gabe also walks, like there's an interesting line we have to kind of tightrope walk, which is that the art is impressive and different enough that you're happy that it's somebody else, but also close enough to what Mouse Guard is that it doesn't feel jarring.
Absolutely. I think you've walked that line very well. I think
that's why we waited for Gabe. I was like, he is the guy who can thread that needle.
Yeah, there's something about, there's something about the world and the reeds, the weeds that exist in the forest that you draw. Yeah. And he captures that. Like that's the link, it's almost that. It's the forest.
And we do detailed stuff and ink line and ink texture completely differently, I think. But I think we are same in the way that we obsess over it.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I agree. When he's drawing the landscape, when he's drawing the locations, the stone and the hand hewn beams and the worn wood tables and the hand calligraphied maps, my version of that map or table or castle would look different than Gabe's, but the obsessiveness over it, the richness of it, the lived-in believability of it, I think he and I are on exactly the same page, and I think that's why it works, and that's why I needed him for this first one.
So I want not to spoil what goes on inside the book, but at the back of the book, there's this really cool thing where you put in some back matter, and it's really some of the most interesting thing because it's page 4, but you give us the script, pencils, the inks, and the colors. Do you know why you picked this page?
Why I picked that page? Because it was one where there was
going to give. Yeah, this is the inked. This is the colored page. So
there's several guard mice sitting around a table. It's also the first time we're in that location in the comic, and so one of the reasons I picked it was because my script was dense enough that we could fill up a page
with the script
showing my script. Where you get to another script
instead of 4 lines.
Yeah, it's like Bardrick
go for it.
Bardrick walks across a log, sees the sunset, keeps moving on, or the elk walks beside him. Like that's not enough. That's not enough to fill up a page. So that was one reason. It's also, I think, one of the showstopper pages.
I mean, it's beautiful.
Where there's there's a lot going on. It's one where Gabe actually emailed and kind of jokingly cursed me out. He told me I had reached Joe Hill levels of jerk script.
I
3
panels.
Right. I came back. It was that initial panel where there's just a lot going on. There's a lot that he has to fit in.
He did. Okay.
There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of architecture.
But well done.
Yeah. There's a lot of architecture. There's a lot of where do you put the camera so that you can see all of the players, so that every one of them who has dialogue can be seen in a way. You have a couple characters with their backs to us, but he had to turn them, but then leave enough negative space we can see them to the characters behind. There's a lot going on, but I did push back a little, going look, I am not asking you to draw anything that I wouldn't. And he also complained about the calligraphy on the map, and I was like, look, I gave you a sample of the map just to show you the rough the rough layout of where everything is, but I told you to make this map your own, and you decided to keep it as complex as my version, which had which was digital with fonts and stuff. You did that, and then you elaborated on it, so that's on you, buddy. But that's exactly the reason that you want a Gabe Rodriguez on this book.
But you told him what the room looks like, sort of.
I did. I gave him. I gave him
drawings
some,
of that.
Yep.
I loved it. I love this book. I really do. Thank you. I always have. I'll tell you, one of one of the things that I love about my relationship with Mouse Guard is that I read it a long time ago. Um, but when I started going to conventions, and a friend of mine, I kind of said, "Hey, we're going to a convention. Would you want to come?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I love comics. I like all kinds of nerdy stuff." And he's a big WoW player, and plays Dungeons and Dragons and all kinds of stuff. So it's everything about Comic Cons is perfect for him. And he just, while I was at the con this past weekend, he was at Awesome Con and had a great time, and met Timothy Zahn and stuff like that. So, but he came to your table without me, and when the show was over, he's like, "Oh well, we bought all of Mouse Guard and we bought the game, the card game, and all the stuff, and they just were completely, bought everything they could off of you," which I loved. And I'm like, "Yeah, Mouse Guard is really great. I love Mouse Guard." And he's like, "Yeah, well, we're totally." So he's a big fan, and I love that. I love that about. Whenever I think of Mouse Guard, I also think of my relationship with my friend who.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Fun.
That's nice. Yeah.
Do you? Mouse Guard has generated a fervent fandom. Am I wrong?
No. I would say loyal more than fervent.
Loyal.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I don't feel like anybody's. There aren't torches and pitchforks at the gate.
No.
Demanding more, or if somebody gets something wrong online about Mouse Guard, I don't feel like my fans are quick to,
I did not mean angry fandom.
Maybe I'm applying something to fervent that isn't really inherent in it. I'm thinking
they're loyal and they're waiting for
yes,
it. And they're going to be there when the next thing, and they'll come see you at every show that they can.
Yes,
and those kinds of things. So
yes.
How does that feel? After you've been doing this for 20 years and you have people who just are waiting for you to make new stuff and can't wait to keep talking to you about the stuff you've made.
I'm super grateful, especially with their patience. The last decade or so has really slowed down with new Mouse Guard stuff, and has been kind of difficult. And I know that I get asked all the time about what the next thing is, or when is more coming out, or why isn't there more already? And what's lovely is all it takes is me just going like, here's where we are, and here's where I hope to be in terms of getting new material out. And they're just like, that's great. Take your time. Good things take time. We'll be here. We're just ready. We just, and I then have to take any of that asking is just they're fans who want more. That's sure. All it is. It's not, there's not critical.
Yes. And I think that's super interesting.
I'm also glad, like when way back, at the earliest parts of Mouse Guard with Archaea, when Mark Smiley was running Archaea, he had his own book called Artesia, and he had made an Artesia role-playing game. And he was most of the people at Archaea at that time were big role players. And I had role played a lot in high school and college. And when the first couple issues of Mouse Guard come out, I have fans coming to me saying, "This is a role-playing game, right?
Right.
This is based on
where are the character stats, please?"
And I'm like, there isn't a role-playing game, but wow, somehow my experience role-playing has kind of seeped into the book. And then what it meant was I knew that when I turned to Mark Smiley, I could say, you guys are the kind of publishing house that would be cool if we did a role-playing game, right? And he was like, of course, we just have to figure out all the logistics of it. But yes, let's do this. And I think that the role-playing game has its own fan base. It's a tight Venn diagram, but it is where there are people who are just fans of the role-playing game. A lot of them come over to the comics, but they find it through the role-playing game. They're fans of the role-playing game of its own accord. And it means that they're also like, that passion spills over for, what it's like when you role play, like you're telling your own stories, you're creating your own world.
Yeah. Like I said, my friend bought the game. I'm pretty sure we played it once with them when we were over there, but there was alcohol involved, so I don't remember. But
there are people who play, long campaigns, and they can, when they come to the table, they can tell me everything about their history and about the, the fall of Maple Harbor, and when this happened, and when a new matriarch was put into Lockhaven, and how they lost a guard mouse, but they celebrate his fall every Yule Frost. And it's like they are living this, and it's awesome. And it's
sure.
Like, now you're in. I know you're in. This is part of your life now.
Yeah. So when Archaea was bought by Boom, how did that change your did that change your interactions, or were you able to continue to do the things you do? Or
Archaea had been purchased once before as well. And every time there's and even before Boom, there was not only a buyout, there was some transition of who's actually in charge at what time.
sure.
And every one of those moments, there's this like, is this going to mess things up? How is this going to change my interaction with the company? How's it going to change how easy it is for me to get things done? Am I going to have all the same kind of like slightly flexible liberties that I do with the publisher, where I can go, hey, you guys can help me make this happen, right? And luckily, knock on some wood, every step of the way, there's been very little hiccup with that transition.
So you can answer this question with no comment.
Yeah.
But since I have you here, have you heard from Andy Schmidt yet? And how's it going?
If I have heard from Andy Schmidt, I think it was just a quick checking in email. I haven't had a deep.
I'm excited. I'm hopeful that.
Yeah, I have met with Michael Kelly, who took over what was Philip Sablick's role, kind of overseeing Boom's publishing role. And he was great, down to earth, guy. I was trying to cram everything, I think, into one dinner, and I think I overwhelmed him a little. I think it was a whole lot of me going like, let me address everything going on with Mouse Guard and everything in the future, and also let me try to assure you that more is coming, even though it's been slow, and I apologize for that.
Cross programming public push here. Philip Sablick will be on the show next Tuesday.
Philip is fantastic.
Yes.
Philip actually, so way back before Boom, before Boom had bought Archaea, and before Philip was even at Boom,
right
at the very beginning, when Mark Smiley's version of Archaea is ready to solicit issue 1 of Mouse Guard in Diamond, Philip Sablick was our Diamond rep. And when he saw the first issue of Mouse Guard, he felt like it was so special. He made it the gem of the month. Is that their?
I think that's one of because gemstone.
Well, no, I think it was because Diamond, like it's their gem.
Diamond. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Gemstone. That's why Gemstone is their publishing company. So.
Okay, so it was their like pick of the month, their special diamond in the rough kind of designation, and he picked it for that, and then I think also ended up making it like the cover of previews. There were a couple like nice bonus perks that we got, and it wasn't just like rubbing elbows with people. Like Mark knew Philip, but it wasn't like, hey Philip, can you do us a favor? Philip genuinely felt like Mouse Guard was something special, which I really appreciate. So then years later, when Boom is getting purchased, not only had Ross multiple times expressed his pleasure for Mouse Guard, even though he wasn't publishing it, but Philip was in the number 2 seat at that point, at the buyout point, and he's like, "Look, I'm already a huge fan of this book. I've been championing it since." Like almost day 1 or day 0. So Philip is great. I got to catch up with him at Baltimore last year. He gave the keynote for the Ringos. It was fantastic.
It was absolutely.
It was a great keynote. Yep.
Well, tune in next Tuesday. We'll have Philip on with Jeremy Hahn. So who's also very cool. Let's talk more about this. So give us what you can. Obviously, we're in this 3 issue Dawn of the Black and there's going to be, you have plans for how many more that you are?
So there have been, before we get to the mouse who wields the black axe in my main series,
Right.
there are 9 past black axes. I would
Nice.
love to do a 3-issue miniseries per each one of those.
Are you looking at going chronologically, or are you just going to
chronologically? No, I'd like to do it chronologically.
Okay.
When I talked to Archaea about that, Boom about that, they were like, "That sounds great. We obviously can't greenlight
9
like
series.
a 9 or 10 book, because we could do one about the most recent black, or the Black X we already know. We could do one little mini series about him too. I think I pitched it as a 10 just to round it out. And they're like, we can't greenlight a 10 book series. Like that's too much, but we can start slow. We can definitely do the first one with kind of an eye to maybe the next 2.
Sure.
So very little has actually been talked about so far about the next 2, other than I have outlines for those stories and those tales and the artists that I want to work with on those.
It reminds me a little of Blood of the 10 Chiefs. Did you ever read that?
I'm not familiar, no.
So you're familiar with ElfQuest?
Yeah.
So Cutter is Blood of 10 Chiefs.
Okay.
So they did a prose anthology that was a story about each of the 10 chiefs.
Okay.
Prior to.
Yeah.
Then it had like every science fiction fantasy writer that you could imagine. They got like, it was good. So it reminds me of that kind of an anthology thing, even though that was, in a prose thing. But like, I love that concept. Like, where you are today. You've met the Black Axe. You've met how that character interacts with the rest of the guard that we know of in 1152. Is that right? Did I get it right?
Yep.
That was good.
Good job. Good job. It's a lot of fake dates to keep in your head.
It is. And I may be a history major, but dates were always my problem.
Yeah, and fake dates make it even harder, right? It's all made up.
So we know that thing, but now we're to go back and get that history. That I love that concept. I love
and some of it is about the history. Like, I know that there's stuff about the Mouse Guard world that I want to explore that's historic in potentially each one of these. But I think there's also just a chance for me to do something just a little different. I mean, even though I'm writing these, I think the nature of what these books are gives me permission to do something just a little bit different. I can't really do, I think it's too much for me to do a whole, normally my series are like 6 issues long, to do a 6-issue ghost story, light horror suspense kind of a tale. But I like those kind of stories. I'm a big fan of like the way Mignola handles ghost stories. They're never gory. It's not that kind, but they're genuinely suspenseful and spooky. So to do that kind of thing, to do like something in not the same story, but the tone of A Christmas Carol.
Right. I mean,
putting that in the main Mouse Guard series just doesn't really work. But if I go, I'd like to explore that kind of story with one of the Black Axes, we have some room to do that. And then combined with that, it's another artist who can maybe lean into those tones differently than I would, means we really get to explore something different. So it's also giving like these like interesting side dish Mouse Guard stories.
I love that you're kind of like show running this universe a little bit. Like, I mean, I think it's great. I again, it's, I know Mike is one of the people who was inspiring to you, but now you're kind of becoming your own little Mignola here with
that's, I mean, my little heart just 3 sizes.
But there exactly. You got this is my realm, and let's do it that way. And I don't mean that in a conceited way.
I took that as just total compliment. Yeah,
it's there's something to that. And I love that you're doing that. I love that I think it's important. I think that it's important because what you do, what all the people that we talk to, and all people in comics, we all love the medium, but it is an unforgiving medium. And everybody goes through times when it does not forgive you, where it takes from you, it doesn't give back. And being able to manage, your exertion, and how much it beats on you is important. And especially as everyone gets older, when the 20-year-olds who go 20 hours a day drawing,
Right.
can do that. But
Yeah.
we all need, and it's a conversation that we have all the time. We have it with everybody, that we can't let that become acceptable and the norm. We need to be able to make sure that we still get to live, past 50, past 60.
Right.
um
I'm starting to knock. I'm in the neighborhood of 50 now. I'm 47. I have a birthday in July, so I'll be another step closer. And yeah, I say to Julia all the time when I'm working either on the Weasel War, which is the next book, or just stuff for like coloring. I kind of got roped into coloring Dawn of the Black Axe by Gabe. I wasn't planning on doing that, and it's so amazingly time consuming that I just keep going, I can't believe how long this is taking. This used to go so much quicker. And she's like, you're not 20 anymore. That's why.
So do you think that you're putting in more?
I think so. The coloring on this, I think, is it's got all kind of mitigating factors of why it's so hard and why it's longer. I think if we try to compare apples to apples, if you look at how quickly I colored something like the first Mouse Guard book, Fall, and then if I was to do like a new Mouse Guard print of my own artwork, tomorrow, and color that, it's going to take me longer to color that than it would have to color a similar page or cover from Fall.
Because you know how to do things?
But I know how to, it's like, in some ways, I'm faster than I used to be because I know all kinds of production shortcuts like within Photoshop to make my life easier. But I also know things now about artistic balance. Like that needs needs more contrast or less contrast. That has too much texture. That needs more texture. Right.
Right.
The more you know about trying to make the image look good means it can take longer. So in those apples to apples, I'm getting slower just because of wanting to do better work. And also just getting older and going slower. Coloring Dawn of the Black Axe, some of it comes down to just Gabe's complexity of pages,
sure,
and panels and ink work and detail. And then the other part of that is Gabe is very different about his shadows, his inked shadows, than I am. I almost never put in big solid black areas unless something's meant to be a pure silhouette. Gabe puts in all kinds of shadows, which then means when you're coloring it, you have to color it accordingly so that there's realistic lighting. In my books, when I color stuff, there's just kind of this nice ambience of light. I'll maybe show that there's a little bit more light coming from this side, but I don't have to plan out the light sources. I'm just coloring it until it looks nice. And with Gabe,
you did a great job.
I'm having to do like practically math. And then there was this complex thing, which, I know I wrote it in myself. There is a spectral elk, kind of a ghost elk, and getting the ghostly effects so that
how long did it take you to figure the color on that? Of what it would look like? How many did you take multiple passes on?
No, actually, first pass went quick. In terms of
what its core color.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, because I had done some ghostly things in Mouse Guard before, and I always kind of lean towards Star Wars Force Ghosts.
Yeah,
in appearance. Yeah, and I had done that on my own work before, but then it was just so like getting the color scheme and how that was going to look. That went pretty quick, but then actually rendering it so that you can see, because sometimes Gabe's drawing like the background through the elk, and you have to draw that. Sometimes there's two densities of elk. There's like the more solid version, and then there's super transparent where it's like wisping away, and so now I have to do two layers and fade one back so I can see everything that I've painted behind. It just got technically a lot more difficult. I know that I did that to myself, but
that's fine.
Yeah, it's a lot. This book is has been way harder to color than anything I've ever colored before. And like I said,
Well,
I'm still working on issue 3.
okay, that's fine. Good. As much as you're
Good.
complaining, I think it's good. I think it's a good. I think it's a good hard.
Well, thank you.
Gene has a question.
Yeah.
And thank you, Gene, for continuing to watch through the show. I appreciate it so much. But it's kind of an interesting question. Like, I think the answer is probably no, but let's explore this. Have you ever written for other artists that's not Mouse Guard?
This is the first time I've written anything for anybody other than myself, is this book.
Right. That's what I know. You've drawn for other people.
Yep, I've done, and not much of that.
Only a
little bit of that. I did a
Bill Willingham stuff, right?
Yeah, I've done 2 Bill Willingham things. I did a House of Mystery and a Fables.
Mm-hmm.
The Fables one was fun,
and there was an anthology too, I think. Wasn't there?
I did a 3-page, 5-page, some short number for Ramayan 3392. I did a single page of a little Nemo in Slumberland thing, but I wrote that.
You wrote those, yeah.
So I've done some other things, but not a whole lot of other stuff.
How do you feel about just writing?
I've wanted to do it more. I'm just super. So Gabe and I actually talked, I would say 4 years ago. We had a dinner at San Diego where we talked about, let's do something together that I write and he draws. And I pitched a couple ideas, and he had one that he was like, hey, I think that's the thing that we should do. And then I got super spooked by the whole thing and kind of just let it drop. Yeah, it was, there were lots of problems. One was I've never written for somebody else. And the idea of writing something where I'm breaking down, page 1, page 2, page 3, etc., so that I know that it fits, instead of handing someone just a tangle of words and saying you figure it out, and then them going, this would be like a 72-page issue. What are you doing?
That's got to be a little nerve-wracking for you, and I get that, because you're used to sharing the same underwear as your writer and artist.
And I'm the artist who happens to be a writer. So if at any point I go, this doesn't fit, word wise, I can just adapt. I can, the artist is always going to overrule what visually fits, both visually in terms of the panel drawings, but also I can't cram this much text in these panels. The writer wins.
Right.
And I feel like doing that, or I'm sorry, the artist wins, and doing that where it's working with somebody else is totally weird. And then
does artist David hate writer David and just say basically, I'm going to do whatever I want. Screw you.
He doesn't hate him. Wow, this is
I'm saying I have these conversations with Tom Zoller, right?
This is a therapy session. Yeah,
it is. I have these same conversations with Tom Zoller, and he's like, he'll get mad at his writer at times, because he, will find himself with a lot of cars to draw or something, or whatever it is.
I'm good about that. I'm pretty good about that, about not writing stuff in that I don't want to draw, or that's too complicated to draw. I'm pretty good about that. It's more that if something doesn't fit or it's too wordy, like, wow, you've packed too much in where I can't break all these things down into enough panels to fit all these actions into one issue, or scenes into one issue. I think artist David has enough of a chip on his shoulder of, I know what I'm doing. And writer David is nervous and insecure enough that all it takes is writer David to go, you didn't even know what the hell you were doing. Don't worry, I'll fix this for you. And writer David's just like, yes, sir, please do. Please do. I don't know what I'm doing. Please fix it. So it's not even like one's mad at the other. It's just like, oh, you numbskull, I'll fix this.
Yeah. That's great. That's fantastic, though. I mean, I love that. I love talking to cartoonists about things like that, especially when you're, it's different when you're in a 3 panel strip versus, a 20-page comic.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Hang on.
Yeah.
Get out of the way.
I have kind of a set. I do a 9-panel division of my pages.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always do the 9 panels, but I kind of limit myself to that is the only place I'm allowed to break up the page when I'm drawing them.
Okay.
Because if I could infinitesimally start moving this panel up by this much, this panel over by this much, I could do a diagonal panel, whatever. It's too many options. And I can't just figure out how to fit everything because there's just too much. There's too many variables. So if I limit myself, then I know this is how I have to get everything to fit.
So why I'm going to ask the question I normally ask.
Okay.
Why comics? Why do you want to tell these stories in this sequential visual medium?
Grew up reading comics. Before that, I was out on the playground, making up stories, playing with friends, pretending to be characters from movies or TV shows that we enjoyed, playing with action figures with, sticks at the bases of trees and stuff like that. So there was all that kind of like coming up with our own stories, etc.
Right.
But it was picking up an issue or the first, and when I say first, I mean first publishing, first edition of the Ninja Turtles, the color graphic novel, where the cover of the book says Eastman and Laird's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There was photos of them with bios in the back, and I just remember like reading through those first. I think it's like the first 3 issues is the first collection.
I think so.
And those 3 stories are different, are all different enough too, where I just went, these guys are just making this crap up and writing it down. And I say crap not meaning derogatorily, but just like,
yeah.
I was reading X-Men around the same time, but it all felt a little formulaic, a little bit like there's this big Marvel crank that just gets turned. And I know those were individuals writing and drawing interesting new stuff and going, what can we do with these characters that are interesting? But there was just something so different about those Ninja Turtle stories, and that what was issue 1 had absolutely nothing to do with what was issue 2. You could tell it was just like these guys just making stuff up. They were just making it up. It came out of nowhere.
So it's interesting because I think there is that awakening when you touch indie books. Like there's these massive things that people of our generation who, when you're born and when you first start to read, Superman is already an institution, right. and all of these things, and you read and you learn to read comics and you like reading comics and you find these things to be interesting. You love the way the stories are being told, but there is something when you find independent stuff. So I remember the first comic book convention or show that I went to. I was 13, I think. So it was 85. And I went into this VFW hall and there was just a bunch of vendors. It was in South Jersey. It was at the Jersey Shore where I grew up. And so there were no famous people there. I don't know. Jack Harris could have been there and I wouldn't have known, but there's nobody there, just this. But in this room with all these back issues of X-Men and whatnot, and were Turtles and Mage and Cerebus. And what is this? Because you don't see that. You don't get that at the Krausers, and so just having that experience where there are people who are making this, even though they're not getting paid by these things with these, special little logos in the corners of the books.
Yep.
And, you feel the love of the medium and the need to tell the story, and it makes you love it even more.
Yeah.
And then you start reading, New Dean Agents are like, oh, they're making fun of the X-Men and the Teen Titans at the same time.
Right. And with the Ninja Turtle, I mean, I know that there were letterers and colorists involved, but the credits list for a Ninja Turtles comic was real short.
Sure.
Whereas the credit list on an X-Men comic, between, maybe plotter and writer, although most of it was just, Claremont is the writer, but then you have a penciler, an inker, a colorist, an editor in chief, et cetera, et cetera. And it just, letterer. And it just, the credits list became very long, and going like, it really just is these two guys, making stuff up. So when it came time for me to try doing something, like I tried
guys making stuff up, right?
There you go. When I tried doing, I tried my hand at animation. I tried my hand at a little bit of filmmaking, movie making. Once we got a VHS camcorder, comics are one of the only visual mediums that you can do by yourself, or with a very small crew, and still have just as successful of results. Like, the success of the results is dependent on you, not like, hey, we're a small team, we can't do anything cooler. Like, it's just, what kind of stories do you want to tell? How well can you draw that? How well can you visualize that? So I'm an artist more than a writer. So if I'm going to tell stories, they need to be visual. What visual language is it possible to do that kind of stuff with only one or two people, and not have to rely on some larger structure? And comics is one of the only.
Yeah, no, it's great.
So that's just to answer your question, why comics?
No, that's a good answer. I like that answer. After these 3 issues, do you have a time frame on the next main Mouse Guard?
I don't. I've been working on it on and off. Like, I started working on.
There's no pressure here. I'm just
no. I've been working on it on and off. I was working on it back in 2017, and then it had to hit the back burner and stuff. And the plan was, when Dawn of the Black Axe, this book with Gabe, like, once I had it written,
you can just cruise control.
Right? Like, it's just, I'm approving pages, but I can work on Weasel War again, and then everything has just gotten backed up because of coloring it, and also then just going like, why are we paying a letterer? I can just letter this. Like, I'm going to do a lettering guide about where I want the lettering to go anyways. I might as well just letter it.
Next time, let somebody else letter it.
Yeah, it's probably for the best anyways, but
that's why you need an editor.
I'm not a great letterer, but I also
you're a very fine letterer.
Thank you.
But but what I'm saying, I didn't mean that into
your
skills.
No,
I'm just saying
I'm doing that
as my in the world of making comics is one of the projects that I'm working on as an editor is the person I'm working with is a cartoonist. They're an artist who is writing their own story, right? And getting them to say, hey, I know you've lettered your stuff in the past. I know you've colored your stuff in the past. Let's not worry about that.
Yeah.
Let's get other people to do that, because that's their focus. That's what they do. Let them do that. And it's important. And also, Gene loves your lettering too. So,
thanks, Gene.
So there you go. And
I do have a hard time taking my hands off the wheel.
Sure.
For some of that, and I mean, down to like even book design. Like, every Mouse Guard book that's come out, I have usually hand drawn a pagination guide. Like, I do little thumbnails of every page. Of what needs to go where. Sometimes the covers for the issues become like the bumpers between what become chapters when it's a hardcover. Sometimes now we're talking about stripping those out, putting them at the end, all that kind of stuff. How many pages before the book starts, how many after. And case in point, and nothing against my editor on this book, it's just two very different ideas. When we got issue 1 done and turned in for something that I had I had planned out everything from inside front cover to inside back cover. What would be issue 1 at exactly 24 pages? They go, oh, no. This is slated to be a 32-page book. So we need bonus content in the back. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And they're like, well, that's what we're doing. So what do you want to go there? And now it's like, well, the people who made this choice for me of making it a 32-page issue, I don't want them in charge of making the decision about what goes there.
Well, why not? Let them do it.
Because I already don't like the decision that we're doing 32 pages instead of 24. I already know that they're
you gotta let other people use things.
So
you let them do, and then you tell them no. See, that's
they came up with a couple things, and I'm like, that works for this one, but what do we do for issue 2? We can't do. I don't have a similar. So I came up with showing that back matter that you were talking about,
which was
breakdowns, because I can do a different one for each issue. Like I can pick a page from issue 2, and we can do the script, the pencils, the inks, the colors, and eat up at least that many pages.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of like, I can't take my hands off the wheel, because if I do, other people are going to make choices that then I have to live with.
No, see, here's the thing. Let them make the choices, and if you don't like them, then tell them go back and make a new choice.
Yeah. I also hate wasting people's time. I hate the idea of telling people just go ahead and do a whole bunch of stuff, and then I'm just going to say no, and then ask you to do it all over again with something else that I probably should have told you the first time. That's how I wanted it done.
All right. Well,
I love the resignation. All right.
I mean, I'm not gonna convince you of anything different. I already know that.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I already said I'm maybe open to having a letterer. That's there we go.
I take that as a win for this entire hour.
There we go. We did it.
Okay. At least for the next 5.
But yeah, so, I want to get back to, as soon as I'm done with this Dawn of the Black Axe coloring. I feel like I have. I can't talk about what it is, but I have another thing that I have to do, a cover basically for something. And then my plan was just to get right back into Weasel War. I think there's always this kind of back and forth debate. We've done these. We've done one of these collections, Baldwin the Brave, which was many of the short stories that were released for Free Comic Book Days over the years.
Right.
We have right now 4 of those. So this is 6 of those size stories. I have 4 of those right now that have not been collected in a hardcover.
Okay.
And so it just would take 2 more, and we get another hardcover out of it. And I really go back and forth on, does it make more sense to do 2 more short stories and get that hardcover out, or get Weasel War done and then just know we'll be able to have a second hardcover come out right after Weasel War with more short stories immediately after. And I really, depending on which day it is, I go either way on it. So
I'm good with both. Both ways will work. And I know you're not looking for my opinion, but you got to make that choice yourself, or Julie's to make it. So,
yeah.
So, Jesus, listen, Dean, we didn't ask you to sit here and listen to us while you're coloring or inking, which is, I'm sure that's what he's doing. But we'll get you on soon. Anyway, we're just about out of time. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you coming in early because I'm by myself here, and I appreciate that. It is always great to talk to you. We have 2 more issues of this coming out. Next issue comes out in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, I think.
The date got moved. Yeah, it was supposed to be April, I think, originally, then it got. I don't know why. I think everything got turned in on time, but it's now the beginning of May. Like May.
I believe so.
I don't know the exact date, but yeah, beginning of May. And then if I can get issue 3 colored, wrapped up, last one comes out in June.
All right. And you're going to be at, you said Motor City Con next month. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. Motor City. My plan for conventions this year is Motor City. So I'm doing Free Comic Book Day before Motor City here locally at Green Brain Comics. in Dearborn, Michigan, then Motor City in May, which is in Novi, Michigan, Heroes in June, San Diego in July, and then Baltimore and New York. And I can't remember which one comes first this year because I know Baltimore has to move around.
It's New York and then Baltimore.
Okay, so New York and Baltimore. Yeah, they're
back-to-back weekends, so you might as well not go home.
We've done that one year, and it was it was
I'm
a
just
lot.
saying, I'm not happy about it.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, you know Mark Nathan. I do. It's really interesting being someone who exhibits at conventions. I'm sure also someone who attends conventions, to get to know one or two convention organizers and listen to them about what it takes to put on a convention. Because there are things that you just think, like, well, why did they pick that date? And it really varies. It varies from location to location.
It varies from con to con. It varies from year to year.
And also, like, the case with Baltimore is that the city of Baltimore owns the convention center, and so it's essentially like the Chamber of Commerce that decides who gets priority for what weekends, and it's that you have to show the impact that you bring to the city. And something like a doctor's convention, where it's way fewer people, but they're going to spend more money and they're all going to book the hotel that the convention recommends. Whereas, comic fans, they're going to find the cheaper location. They're going to stay further out. They're going to, bunk up with a whole bunch of people in one room, etc. And it means that there's less of an impact, which means Mark Nathan can't make the choice that he wants for which weekend. And so it sometimes gets moved around.
Sure. I mean, we've had these conversations. We have these conversations all the time. There are infinite number of things. I'm interested. I don't know the story yet, but I'm sure I'll find out why Heroes is not on Father's Day weekend this year.
Yeah.
But anyway, I will see you at Heroes I'm going to San Diego for the first time this year.
Oh, really?
Yep. And I will be at Baltimore and New York. So I'll see you at all that stuff. All hosts Motor City.
Awesome.
Thanks again for being here, David.
Yeah.
Everyone, please go by Mouse Guard, Dawn of the Black Axe, and find out about Bardrick's Tale. And thanks again. We'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, David. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here, for being so engaged. I'm sure he'll forgive you about the getting his alma mater wrong. I will see you at Heroes then, Gene. We're going to be back next week. We're going to have, it is launch night. We do this occasionally at this show, where we we have a comic that's getting kickstarted or crowdfunded, and on launch night we have the creators on, and we are going to have the creators of the first Ignition Press book on next week. We're going to have the publisher, Philip Sabrick, and author Jeremy Hahn on next week, Tuesday. Please be here. We have a guest scheduled for the following week, which will be Stephanie Williams. So make sure you like, follow, subscribe. Be here every Tuesday. We will be here for you. We'll talk about comics. We'll talk about fun stuff. Thanks for being part of the squad, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you for being here.
This has been a production of the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com. How do you nerd?